Stress.
Hello, it's Sunday evening, and here we are. Welcome to our little soiree in our living room here in central Cambridge, which is where we are based. And just adjusting the second camera here a bit to make sure that the light on the ceiling doesn't shine in your eyes, because although the sun shines in our eyes, that's a bit different, isn't it, really, because it's allowed to do that. And so we're going to start as usual with a sort of roundup of today's things, everything that's going on, and all that kind of stuff. And then later on we will move forward. And hello to our excellent, very good friend Kevin. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's a real pleasure to have your company with us, and hope you'll be able to stick around. Yeah, so as I was saying. It's Sunday. It's the end of week, whatever it is, 55, 7, 8 to 56. My goodness, we've nearly done, as of tomorrow, it will be 8 weeks in lockdown, which is quite
goodness, it's that long.
it is that long, and so I remember that from school, because my late lamented dad used to make sure that when I was a kid I could do all my times tables in my head, and then when somebody
I can't hear you.
Oh, we're switched off. Okay, we're going to be aha. Hello, and a very good evening once again. A huge apologies there for a minute of silence, which will go down in posterity as zit, because it wasn't recorded. Except actually, all these videos are available on YouTube the following day, and so it's possible to catch them there. I hope we are able to be heard now. This is what comes when you double up a radio studio, which is up here, standing just out of a view of the old camera. There it is, and you're trying to do sort of television as well, and it's all quite a thing. And I shouldn't have done that, because it was just so carefully positioned just out of camera shot, but able to hear things. So so apologies for that. What did we say so far? Absolutely nothing of any significance. So we rewind and we start again. And there's still a tiny little bit of microphone there that's just visible for the sharp-eyed. Your lips, but I can't hear what you're saying. Oh my goodness me! Lip reading is a wonderful skill, and if we can encourage people to do that, then it's all good. A very good evening to our our very good friend Fiona this evening. Thank you for joining us, and to my excellent friend Cyril in Essex, who's listening in tonight. Cyril Thomas, a very good evening to you, sir. We invite people every night to join us in our living room here. We have a good old chit chat about stuff in the news, a few things about that blobby virus, but some happy stuff, and all kinds of other stuff as well, which is super. William, did I say hello to William? It's good of you to join us this evening. Now, today also is the 5th anniversary of the death of my uncle, my beloved uncle, who was a monk. So for the last quarter of an hour or so, we're going to read you his favourite little story. I've got a recording of him saying it, but Irma and I, if that's okay with you, Amar, we're going to read through this quite profound and very insightful story, which will be terrific later on in this evening's thing. We were supposed to, in theory, start this. We've been doing it most nights since lockdown begun, and this is day 55. We were supposed to do it in theory at 7 p.m. It's now what time? 9:30. So kind of, the thing is a bit sort of flexible. So it's lucky this is not a TV station or anything like that. Otherwise, we'd have been sacked long ago. I think they would have given us our marching orders, or given us a morning chat show to do, one or the other. Because we're quite cheap, we will work for a £5 a day. If any TV executives are watching, happy to do that. We've got the film set already set up behind us, and it's not a blue screen. You've got to take my word for it. But in previous occasions, I have gone behind me there and taken a book off the old shelf.
Yeah, but definitely we're very grateful for allowing us to be with you, and it's order to keep us sane and keep everybody sane.
We are
during these turbulent times.
Absolutely, we're hugely appreciative of you letting us into your homes, and we're letting you into ours. And when all this is over, maybe you'll come and visit us. Anybody who's watching this, you're welcome to pop by, and the teapot and the coffee pot are always warm, aren't they? And you'll always, I promise you, receive a very warm welcome from us. Absolutely no question at all about that. And so. Well, we start with some rather interesting news, which is that the government has unlocked the coffers yet again, as they're sort of doing really quite a lot. Hello, Renee. Thank you for joining us this evening. The government has dipped into the public purse, which I would point out, in all fairness, we contributed towards by way of our taxes. So it's a sort of it's a generous gesture, but it is just giving us back some of our money that we paid in. I thought I should mention that, being the contrarian fella in the room as always. But £84 million of new funding is going to come to help accelerate domestic efforts to develop a coronavirus vaccine.
Finally.
Alok Sharma, who is the business secretary, he said this is in addition to the £47 million which has already been invested into vaccine development at Oxford University and Imperial. And we saw all about the Oxford vaccine a few weeks ago on the Andrew Marr show, which we watch kind of religiously, every Sunday morning at whatever it is, o'clock. We turn on the telly and watch him give the politicians a good run for their money. We need incisive journalism. There aren't many. Most journalists nowadays, and obviously I love journalists the world over, but a lot of journalists are a bit lazy, and they just trot out all the press releases. Well, they do. They just trot out all the press releases that they get, and then they get access to the next press release, and that's about it. But an investigative journalism when I was a kid was a fantastic thing. And there were people like Duncan somebody or other, and John Pilger, and all these people who used to really dig deep into the stories behind the stories. ITV had a great show called World in Action. I don't know if anybody remembers that, where they because the job in a democracy of journalists is to hold politicians, to hold our governments to account, so that the governments are chancers, let's be honest, and we mustn't let them get away with stuff. If we watch them the whole time, then the money that's supposed to be there will be there, being spent on what it's meant to be spent on. It won't be squirreled over there to one of their mates by a backdoor route with brown envelopes going around and all that kind of thing. Scurrilous hooligans, all of them. And that's today's first rant. I'm sure there'll be plenty more. Anyway,
those days.
So an AstraZeneca has now finalised a global licensing agreement with Oxford University with support of the government, because Oxford are one of the forerunners in this developing a vaccine process. And if that vaccine works, and we're going through the trials now, then AstraZeneca will make 30 million doses available for the UK as part of an agreement for over 100 million doses in total. And I think I'm right in saying that they're going to do this as a non-profit thing, just covering their costs, which is a terrific thing, and it's all good. I will point out, because I like to do both sides of everything, that it's not certain that a virus will ever work against this particular lurgy, because rather like the common cold and like all its associated cousins, oh look at that frown, it does mutate a lot and it's jumping and changing. But there are things that are being worked on, and that also means that if you catch it, we can't guarantee that you're going to be immune to it for life or whatever. And it might be like with a cold, you catch a cold and you catch another cold, except this one is worse, and it kind of grabs you by the throat and throttles you. So we don't want to catch this, which is why the smart ones, I tell you, the smart money is on staying at home at the moment and keeping ourselves isolated and because the more we learn about this virus, the more of a nasty lurgy it does, and it lurks in your kidneys and your eyeballs and in your flatulence and all kinds of places, and it causes mischief even after you've beaten it. It might leave scarring on the lungs and blah 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 blah. So stay at home and stay safe, and don't be blasé, and only idiots go to the pub when there's a pandemic on. So we're having a lot of fun here. This is just as much fun as sitting at the snug in the old Bull and Bush having a good old pint. We've got our pints here. Kevin asked me the other day what is in these cups. I'm not telling you. Not telling you.
And mine is coffee.
But I'm telling you, this is not coffee in mine, that's for sure.
No, it's just tea.
Well, damn it, she gave it away. My secret is out, and oh, I'll have got to hide my head in shame moving forward. Hello, Wendy. It's very nice to have your company this evening. How are things over there in? Isn't it London, the town where you live? Because or nearby? Because I remember you posting a thing about London. It wasn't London. It was another London. So please clarify in my muddled old head the situation as far as that's concerned. But Wendy, lovely lady, friend of my good friend Ronnie, and listens to The Rock Show most weeks, which is a great honour to have you kind of on board. But I know there's something about London, and I know it's not the one that is just down the road from me, which I haven't been to for a long time, because it's got a lot of people who are not very well there, and they're coughing and sneezing a lot and all that stuff. So yeah. So yes, the big story is that announcement that there'll be 30 million vaccines by September, which will be kind of nice if it happens here, and that was apparently announced at Sunday's Downing Street News Conference, which, rather like this nightly thing that we always do, was delayed today due to technical difficulties. So you see, it happens to the best of us, and it also happens to those bad guys as well on the podium. So, you know, a little joke we slid in there. And there it is on the old, coronavirus lockdown rules to be tested, with UK set to enjoy the hottest day of the year so far. It's a bugger, isn't it, staying at home when it's all sunny outside, but it's necessary. And you know, we're taking up hobbies like you know, I'm learning knitting, and Irma's learning nuclear physics, so between the two of us we're going to be really clued up on stuff. We'll be able to knit our own cold fusion reactor, and that will solve all the Earth's energy needs at a stroke. I mean, you know, well, how do you knit with uranium? It's difficult. It's not easy, because with all the hazmat suits, it's kind of quite hard to juggle the needles. I'm telling you, and you think I'm joking, but yeah, so there is some terrific news there, and an honourable mention goes to Utrecht, where in the university they're developing a monoclonal antibody that would whack all the SARS-CoV-2 variants or mutants, or whatever you care to call them, on the head, and so science is really pulling together in a very nice way, in the way that sort of took us to the moon when I was a kid. We're now sorting out something in our back door which is rather nasty, which I think is great, but we shouldn't be complacent. It's still out there at the moment. And you know, we need to be vigilant. So Kevin says, yeah, they couldn't take any questions by Zoom in the briefing today. Isn't that a thing? Wow.
Well, I wonder if it's to do either a technical error, or there is a very important day tomorrow, which is for the World Health Assembly tomorrow, in terms of many countries getting together to say, well, who done it, kind of thing. In terms of the coronavirus. So very interesting the way he's behaving, the coronavirus that is, in terms of all the different submodalities that we had experienced from the very first bit of information we had in that regard. So interesting to find out that it's not just vaccine but also treatment, and perhaps two of them together.
Yeah, and we still haven't heard from China about patient zero. It's very important to find your knees are a bit short-sighted today, because they've got glasses on them. Isn't that an extraordinary thing? Which to get that extra little bonus footage, you'll have to watch it on YouTube tomorrow, I'm afraid, because it doesn't, the camera in here on Facebook, because we're a family show on Facebook. It's a very different sort of orientation of things, but whoa. So patient zero hasn't been found yet, and there are increasing. A very good evening to Kevin in Ipswich this evening. Hello, thank you for joining us. Kevin was an absolute stalwart when I used to run co-host a property meeting here in Cambridge every week at the what we call Holiday Inn Hotel. Other hotels are available, and some of them are called the Hilton and the Ritz and all that sort of thing, but that was Holiday Inn. You know, my scale of end of the scale of stuff. And yeah, Kevin used to come most weeks, and sometimes he'd help for quite often he'd help out on the table at the back as well, with all the meet and greets and everything. Top man. Yeah, with my sort of ramblings, what was I talking about now? I was about to insult somebody, I can't even remember. At my age, let's just insult myself, an old a geriatric old fool trying to be a teenager. There was a song by Harry Chapin, who is a wonderful songwriter and wrote some songs which are absolutely fabulous and moving and lovely and insightful. And sadly, he died all too young in a car crash. But he came up with some absolute belters. One of which was that song about it was Cats in the Cradle, about a dad who is alienated from his son because he never has time for him. And another of them, the one that just popped into my head there, was WOLD, which he wrote when he was on a promotional tour for a song. He was sitting in the radio studio, as you do, with a DJ who was complaining about his ex-wife and their forthcoming divorce and all the problems he'd had. And so Harry Chapin wrote this song about being a late-night DJ on a radio station. It's called WOLD. It's very poignant, actually, and although it's one of these songs that's kind of jazzy and upbeat, like Seasons in the Sun, that song about a bloke waiting to be hanged, which in Poland they use as a sort of a happy sing-song song at a wedding. But WOLD has this very memorable line, feeling all of 45 going on 16, meaning that he's got to be, yay, whoa, but he's really feeling a bit sort of long in the tooth, and it's a sort of professional sort of act that DJs and people have to do for their audience. There's a very well-known DJ in England who used to do the breakfast show on a BBC Radio 1. I think he was the first ever, in fact he was first ever presenter on the breakfast show on Radio 1, and he was going through a bit of troubled time with his missus at some point, and so he would play sad records and da-da-da-da. And that's not what you're supposed to do on a breakfast show, especially him. He was like the king of the corny joke. He was well known for it. And so yes, we haven't found. Fiona says we haven't found patient zero. That is correct, and increasingly there's a new report out today that and it's not the first one, that casts some doubts on whether this virus actually originated in this wet market. It may not have done. The patient zero may have visited the wet market and passed it on. Out of the first 60 or so cases of this, 20 of them had no documented link with this with this market. So that remains a possibility. China are not being as cooperative as they should be on tracing the source of the vaccine. A cynic might say they've got something to hide, that they know it didn't originate in that market, but we don't know. But as Emma was reading a minute ago, the ante is up on this one. Australia are pressing them, and I believe a couple of other nations as well want some answers on that. And I think it's reasonable to say that if we're going to continue to embrace China in the world community, as we had, to buy their stuff and trade with them and blah blah blah, it would be nice to get an answer to that question of what has just brought the world to a complete standstill. It would be nice to get a bit of honesty on that. We didn't have a lot of honesty from our government either, to be fair and to be honest. In the early days, we were seeing a lot of sort of gloomy newsreel footage from Italy and elsewhere, and they're going, keep calm and carry on. Yeah, that's a thing. Some good news from Scotland, which we're going to click on now. And if it doesn't bring the whole broadcast to a halt, because these websites sometimes do, then we will be able to continue with stuff and share it. And otherwise, we'll end up with a blank screen, and we'll be back on here within 2 or 3 minutes. But taking our lives in our hands and clicking the link and watching the thing zoom around in the background, you never know. It also might start playing bagpipes in a minute, this website. But who knows? Who knows? We love to live dangerously on the seat of our pants or whatever. Pants is the before you get shocked. Pants is the American word for trousers, and hence in the UK, Superman wears his pants on the inside, but in the US, Superman wears his pants on the outside, and nobody is scandalised in any way, shape, or form by that disparity. Now, there we go. We're getting into coronavirus good news. Scotland, and I think we're at the point now where we can actually read this in a moment, and we'll share some of the happy stories that have come from north of Hadrian's Wall, so you can't make this up. Okay, so I was talking, and I hope this doesn't play in a minute. Yes, it is about to play, but let's pause this.
It's in silence, so that's okay. And his bagpipes.
We are talking. Look, I hadn't seen this article before. We don't prepare this show in advance. Scottish good news about coronavirus. Bagpipes, I say, and bagpipes it was. So the first story in this Scottish video is about Drums. That's a great name, isn't it? Drums and Roses. This is the Scottish piper, and he's entertaining his neighbours playing ABBA on the bagpipes. And I think I can't remember whether it was on the Rock Show on Facebook or on here the other day when we were talking about metal covers of metal songs on of ABBA songs with shredding guitars and things. I might have talked about it in all of those three contexts. So sorry if I'm banging on about it again, but it's an extraordinary those Swedish popsters who at one point. They were earning more money every year than Volvo. I don't think they were able to sustain it throughout their entire careers because there's still Volvos out there. But the ABBA finds itself on as varied places as some heavy metal guitars. Mostly, of course, these are Swedish bands doing it, and boy, those Swedish bands must be annoyed because their own material, the songs they write themselves, are not as successful as the ABBA covers that they do, and that is just. Oh, that's a career-ending move, isn't it? That would drive me up the wall, wouldn't it? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're covering a Jimi Hendrix song or if you're covering a Led Zeppelin song, but for your finest hour as a metaller, and these Scandinavian metals are all very kind of like Lordi or something. They're all very kind of and that their finest hour should be to cover Waterloo. Couldn't escape if I wanted to is quite a thing, isn't it? Really. So, anyways, there's a blind Scottish pensioner who says that his love for his wife brought him back from the brink of death during his coronavirus battle. He's 80 years old. He's been married to his wife for nearly 60 years. And the docs were fearing that Johnny McAllister, who comes from Oban in Scotland, would become a victim of the disease. But his love for his wife and the incredibly professional and supportive care that he received from NHS staff brought him back, and he recovered. And this reminds me a lot actually of my dad, who when he was about 82, I think it was, he had a stroke. But my mum was his life, and he lived for her, and so he pulled himself through, and it was quite a nasty old stroke, and he made a full recovery, completely rehabilitated himself, and he was back in the saddle soon, walking about the streets here, and having a good old time with the love of his life. So the other thing is, and you might not know this, but the statistics show that sort of happily married men in particular live longer.
Yes,
the women probably live shorter because of the burden of being with the bloody awful bloke, but it's certainly the case that men live longer when they have a wonderful spouse to kind of support and be with them and all that sort of stuff, and that's absolutely true. But back to the haggis. Let's see whether there's anything else in that. And thank you so much, Kevin, for sharing that with us. Now, Scottish. This is a great. We'll have to go on this page more often because this is a new one that I haven't seen before. It's the Scottish Daily Record. Scots Kids Pogo Stick Challenge to raise funds for the NHS. Who remembers? Do you remember what a pogo stick is?
Yeah.
Did you have one?
No, I borrowed one. I wasn't allowed those dangerous games.
I had a broken one that my mate threw away, but it never worked properly.
Bless you.
So there we are. So Leo and Ivy Ingham have decided to pogo the height of Mount Everest. Now,
What?
a lot of elderly people have been climbing the stairs and that kind of thing, and simulating Mont Blanc or various other mountains. But and this particular challenge has been inspired by the wonderful Captain Tom Moore, who should be a saint, I think, really. So your pogo stick jumps that up and down. So it's an awful lot of bounces to reach the height of Mount Everest. And they worked out. See, they're good at maths. These kids. They worked out that the average bounce is 11 centimeters. So to reach the top of Mount Everest, which is about 8 kilometers, they've got to bounce 80,436 times on their pogo stick to reach the world's tallest mountain. But seeing as how there's two of them, it's probably only 40,218 bounces each that they have to do. And I expect Mum will be there with a stopwatch or something counting them. Or those clickers that they use to count people in at nightclubs and all that kind of stuff. Do you know, I knew of a fellow once, because I didn't know him, who was a nightclub bouncer in one of the big cities, I can't remember, in the north somewhere. And he had quite a trusted job there with a clicker. and this naughty fella had 2 clickers. So he used to, on his first clicker, he used to count the first 100 people into the bar and into the club, and take their money and pocket it. He used to trouser the money, and then he'd sort of start clicking for the boss thereafter. And a scurrilous thing, and I believe when his scurrilous deception was discovered, that subsequent to that he was no longer employed by said club to carry on his activities, and he after that I hear he went into politics. Only joking about the last bit, probably. But yeah. So other stories in Scotland, we'll go through it a bit more quickly. A restaurant donates 51 meals to frontline staff in West Lothian, which was very nice, in a hospital there. A kind-hearted youngster in Dumfries painting stones to share with the local community. And a very sweet girl who looks about sort of 5 or 6 years old, with a stone that she's painted, which is lovely. It's very heartrending. A carer who is performing outside care homes with a microphone and a sort of karaoke machine, and he's performing socially distanced gigs, which is nice because that's different from people performing on the internet. He's going around in his car and standing outside care facilities and just playing in the open air, which I think that was so lovely. A rum distiller who's doing his stuff, and he's made a new Scottish rum, he's not only that, he's also supporting people who are during lockdown doing virtual pub quizzes. So that's a cool thing, isn't it? Really, because I think we mentioned virtual pub quizzes the other day.
Yes, we did.
And you can cheat, can't you? If you don't know the answer, you just go, oh, let me think about that, and you've actually got your laptop down, and you're typing away, and you can win the pub quiz. You can win
That's something that I would do. If I don't know, I don't know.
A bottle of virtual rum. So that's got to be good.
Virtual rum.
Yeah, and then
So what do? You kind of guess? Oh, what's that?
a granny. I'm sorry we can't show you the pictures because normally I hold the laptop up, but I'm doing this on a different screen right now. A Lockerbie gran decorates the exterior of her house with a collection of teddy bears. It's all very nice. You see, people are really trying to do things to lift their spirits.
Hello, Yvonne.
Hello, Yvonne. It's very nice of you to join us this evening. We are honoured to have your company with us in our living room here at home. It's just us and you and a cup of tea. And when this is all over, as I say, come round and visit us for a nice cup of tea, really, in our real home. We'll make you very, very welcome. And if you play your cards right, we might even bring some cake out. So that would be lovely, wouldn't it? And,
Yeah.
and that would be a super thing to do, I think.
I think she's practicing a performance with one of the groups in musical groups in Northampton. Is that right, Yvonne?
Oh yeah. Wasn't it? Is it recorder that Yvonne plays?
No.
Flute. I can't
Yes.
remember. A flute. I knew it was a terrific flautist in our midst, which is absolutely fab. Because those instruments are very difficult. They're very difficult. Your keyboard, you just bash away. And I can't remember. We're watching some rock performances or jazz performance this afternoon, wasn't it? It was Spyro Gyra.
Oh.
And while the guy, because we do occasionally, this is a sort of secret thing, but although I'm Mr. Rock, occasionally at weekends I let my hair down and listen to some jazz and stuff like that. So this was some Spyro Gyra in concert. It was a sort of 12-minute video, I think. Were you familiar with Spyro Gyra? I'm not sure.
Yes, I used to listen to Stereo Ray.
Hey!
La máxima dimensión del radio.
Maxima dimension del radio, the maximum dimension of radio, apart from Tuesday nights at 8, when we outmax the max. We crank it to 12.
I always had a very eclectic taste in music when I was growing up. I was always the odd one out in terms of music. So.
That's good. That's good.
Never follow the crowd, huh?
Oh, absolutely. So on this 12-minute Spyro Gyra vid, the saxophonist is really doing his saxophony stuff that you do when you're a saxophonist, and so the keyboard player is just kind of literally doing this. He's going, and then he sort of sits around for a bit, then just sort of playing chords, which sounded a bit better than that.
It's just part of the jazz ensemble.
But it was good. It was really cool. It was quite and then on another one, the drummer was getting quite kind of funky, wasn't he? And sort of moving around like that and all that sort of stuff. Soprano sax,
Whoa.
alto sax, and clarinet. That is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. It's, so the instruments with the reeds, and they are bloody difficult, aren't they? And extraordinary. That's a fabulous talent. massive. All credit to Yvonne. She recorded Over the Rainbow for her local village band, which is fab. Keep up the good work. And I'm guessing, Yvonne, that you did this in a sort of solo context at home, and that everybody mixed it down later to make the final performance, which is so much harder, isn't it, than being there in the room with the folks? Because you know, how do you keep the timing on these kind of things? Very, very tricky. Very tricky. And
huge skill, yeah.
this is, you know, going into the territory of, you know, people who make sort of albums professionally and all that kind of thing, and they have a click track or something, and they have to like perform, and one guy's recording in Los Angeles and one guy's recording in London and another guy's in Munich, and then they stick it all together and make some beautiful music. And it's a way that, you know, the tech has made us very inventive. Hello to our very good friend Paul, who's just joined us this evening from near Colchester. And the joke with Paul is that when we started these 55 days ago, Paul goes, what time are you on? And I go, on the dot of 7 every day, my friend. And I don't think we've managed that a single time since then. And it just got sort of later and later, because that sort of late night, smooth, rich sort of radio sound suits kind of the kind of people in what we do.
Yeah.
Except that Irma likes to go to bed early, which is healthy.
Yeah.
Do 9 o'clock is your bedtime, yeah?
No.
10 past?
No, a little bit later than that. It all depends.
But, you know, Emma's having a terrifically good effect on me, in that I used to sort of, I don't know, fall into bed at 4 a.m. and then drag myself out at 10. And now I do go to bed at the time I'm supposed to. I might get up at 4 a.m. and have a fidget for an hour or two and do some work. But, you know, I do go to bed when I'm supposed to. And I don't always wake up at 4 in the morning. And sometimes I have a snooze in the afternoon, like today, when I nodded right off. Yvonne says she's now decided to record some fun stuff of her own. That is fantastic. Recording at home with a backing track. I hope, you know, that you'll get a chance to share this. If you don't post it publicly on YouTube or Facebook, perhaps you'll PM it to us when it's done, because love to hear that. That would be absolutely wonderful. That would be absolutely wonderful. Now, here in the UK, some more positive news. It just keeps on coming here, and the UK is soon ready to move to level 3 of lockdown as the coronavirus infections fall. But I think it's important to remember. I think it's very important to remember, this is the Daily Mirror, I think it's very important to remember that all these fallings now reflect what was happening when we were locked down and when we were staying at home. In the same way that when we locked down, we had a peak for about 2 or 3 weeks after locking down, which reflected when we were all going around and going to Stereophonics concerts in Cardiff and all sorts of other silly stuff. So let's not get complacent too soon. Let's wait a month. And if the figures are still, and today was a record low figure, it was really, really low. And hello, David. Thank you for joining us. Not for the first time. I think you were with us last night as well. Fiona says, get a Fitbit. It tracks your sleep. It's scientific. Could you tell us more about what that is? Because I've heard that expression a lot, but I'm not quite sure what it is. It's a great name, and I know trainers and people use it, but I'm not quite sure. Is it a wristwatch or something you strap around your waist, or is it an app that goes on a phone? I don't really know. But I know that there are those who recommend this, and I know it's in short supply in the shops, and you have to wait to order them. But as an old codger, I'm not entirely sure. I have to be honest with you, what a Fitbit is. Oh, this is such a lovely picture of Michael Gove, that wonderful politician who seems to be confusing his bottom with his face, and he's about to blow wind or something. He really does look like that. And you know, I wouldn't trust him with a pitchfork, but that's just my opinion, and I'm not being at all slanderous or anything like that. It's just a funny jibe at the expense of a public figure, which I think is probably permissible. Or not, but we'll see. You know, let's hope so. I hope that he and his attorneys take that in the spirit that it was intended. A bit of jocular fun to brighten up our evening during lockdown.
Jugular fun?
Jugular fun. Yeah. Yeah, we're moving towards level 3 on the 5-tier COVID alert system. I don't quite understand their formula, so I think I need somebody to explain that to me, because somebody said that, you know, we only reach level 1 on the formula when there's only 4 cases in the whole of the UK, but it's probably because the government published the guidance on how these levels work rather vaguely. Whereas at level 5 we will head for the nuclear shelters, and all the sirens go, you know, and we head under the tables like in that 1980s video that told us how to survive nuclear war. See, the government really does care. So Fiona says that Fitbit is something that tracks your steps, heart rate, resting heart rate, and sleep, and it reminds you if you've stayed still too long. That's a pretty good idea, actually. I wouldn't need that last function, to be honest, but all the others sound pretty useful. I'm a fidgety guy, aren't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Even asleep, I'm just kind of like all over the place, over here, over there, elbow, and all that sort of stuff. So other than that, I think all the other functions would be really good, and especially with heartbreak, the contrast between when you're going up the stairs, which is sort of the hardest exercise I ever do, really, and when you're sitting in the chair, which is the biggest rest I ever get. So that's the sort of level of contrast that I have in my life here in Corona Land. So yeah, so yes, the death toll for COVID-19 is 170 today. Now, partly that is explained by the fact that the deaths are not recorded very well over the weekend, but it is the lowest figure for absolutely ages and ages and ages. I haven't got the spreadsheet open right now on the computer, so I can't tell you for how long, but I reckon that's the lowest figure for about 2 months, and it's a fantastic. I'll have a look tomorrow night, but it does tend to sort of shoot up on Mondays and Tuesdays, and in the spreadsheety thing that Kevin and I made to track this, so that we can stay slightly ahead of the curve. We did make allowances for the for the fact that it fluctuates over the week, so our curves kind of smooth all that out, and so do our predictions. We expect it to be a bit higher on a Monday, we expect it to be a bit lower on a Sunday, and so on and so forth, and it does seem to have that sort of a pattern. Football.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Our Grace will be happy because apparently there is. Well, the going feeling was for the 12th of June for matches to start again, but that's been no, he has been put back. So, but they are is due to take place on training and medical protocols with the 20 top flight clubs hold their meeting on Monday morning. So tomorrow. Sorry, I had to say it. He supports Chelsea. Bless him. He was about 6.
There's a very, very funny clip, which I can't remember whether it's Italian or Spanish, but it's this commentator, a sort of Latino commentator, who's getting very, very excited about this game, and his country are playing England, and his country scores a goal. And he's going, there you go, Winston Churchill, there you go, Maggie Thatcher, and he's kind of talking about all our world leaders, Henry VIII, and it's a very funny clip. I don't know if it's still available, but when I used to work for a certain well-known radio organisation, it's one of the things we had on our funny tapes. And for about 2 minutes, this guy's screaming his head off, getting very excited and recalling the Spanish Armada and all kinds of things, and sort of feeling that now justice has been served by the goal that his teammates scored against good old Blighty. Mm-hmm. So that's it's.
I think the country is beginning to gear up for start again.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of uncertainty still going on in terms of.
Now, here's a not quite so good thing, and because we mostly tell the good stuff, but when there's something that needs me to lower my voice and lean into the camera, we do tell it. We tell it like it is. Now, up to 20% of hospital patients in England got coronavirus while in for another illness, and then they're wondering why the levels of people coming into A&E has reached an all-time low. I think there might be some kind of link between those two facts. So like even if I broke my arm now, I would just put a bit of sellotape around it, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to demonstrate that, but trust me on that one. And that's why I've got the perfect get out of not doing any gardening at the moment or housework or that kind of thing, because I say, look, if I went into A&E, I'll probably croaky. So she goes, oh yeah, all right, I'm back on the sofa, Dave. So that's my but now I've admitted to it. So now you know my secret strategy. But it's a good one, fellas. It works. That look, honestly, I'm only kidding. As with most of this. So Yvonne adds that Fitbit also tracks blood pressure. It's a trade name, says Kevin. I didn't know that. Other brands are available, just like there are other things, alternatives to Starbucks, B&Q, and the other thing, Netflix. So just so you know. And other brands available. They synchronise with your smartphone. I mean, I've actually got one. It's got a £5 pay-as-you-go thing in it, but I keep it mostly off.
It's never turned on.
Well, my
ever.
£5 voucher then disappears because it upgrades the operating system and things like that at my expense overnight. And sort of having paid, I paid £10 once, and I woke up the next morning and had a shiny new operating system and no credit. And the shiny new operating system looked exactly like the last one. So
Forgot to log onto the Wi-Fi at home.
So Fiona's mum, who lives in Australia, says that people there have been let out now with some minor restrictions, like sort of the size of groups. That is because Australia were bloody clever. Of all the nations in the world, Australia and New Zealand probably handled this the best because they said there's a virus in another country, lockdown. Is that not a sensible thing? Because viruses, the last time I checked, do not cross oceans. They don't float on seawater. They don't live in fish bellies. So it's pretty bloody obvious. So why didn't the damn stupid governments over here do the same? Rant over. So there are some rallies yesterday, apparently, to complain about lockdown. So we can expect riots to rise again by the end of the week. Yes, that's right. And Jeremy Corbyn's brother, who until now, the only person I knew with the name of Piers was Piers Morgan, and I haven't met him in person. I wouldn't particularly want to, but now there's a fellow called Piers Corbyn who got himself arrested at this demo yesterday, and he is related to Jezza, as it happens. Thank you, Rocker Kev. Oh, and a very good evening to the third Kevin to join us this evening, Kevin O'Brien. Hello, sir. Fiona says Australia's death toll is still under 100. That is wonderfully inspiring news. I think it's absolutely fabulous. Michael Scribbins has just joined us again. Hello, Michael. Michael joins us most evenings. Kevin has just told me, and thank you so much. Kevin does all this research in the background. He does it for the Rock Show as well, and he's done that for ages and ages and ages. He did all our research for us at Total Rock and at Rock Radio Network. Total Rock is coming up to its 20th birthday, and I'm going to be recording a few words about that, and a lot of the other Total Rockers are going to be recording a few words about that, and that'll be on their website in the not too distant future. It's very nice of them to remember a few of us. Anyway, these are the UK coronavirus levels as defined by those who know everything about everything, the government. We're currently at level 4 and hoping to bring it down to level 3. And here are the levels. And I didn't know this. I just knew that I think 5 is dangerous and 1 is not very serious. So level 5, as level 4, there's a material risk of healthcare services being overwhelmed. We didn't reach that. We were able to stand down those nightingales, which was fabulous. A plan B would have been to ship more coronavirus patients to the nightingales and perform urgent surgery in some of our hospitals, but I'm only saying. But anyway, I didn't write these. Level 4, a COVID-19 epidemic is in general circulation. Transmitting is high or rising exponentially. And I believe I'm right in saying, well, if they're about to reduce it to level 3, then it must have been that was the one we were at. General circulation of virus, transmission high and rising exponentially, which nobody, including myself, knew what exponential meant until the middle of March when we all went and Googled it, and it's a graph that goes like that. So there, and then it sort of goes up like a Saturn V heading towards the moon. So we don't want that. And now, because we've all been good boys and girls staying at home, it's kind of, instead of going up, it's leveled off like that, and it's starting to come down, which is what we want. So level 3, an epidemic in general circulation. Yeah, there are still people out there. About a week ago, it was only 1 in 400 had it. It's probably now 1 in about 200 because of all the sillies who went to the Lake District and the New Forest and all that over the weekend and there. But, you know, their choice, not mine. Level 2, COVID is present in the UK, but the number of cases is low, which was probably back in January. And so we hope to get back to that one point. And then going back to November last year, COVID is not known to be present in the UK, which doesn't mean you only test 3 people a week like you have been doing, Mr. Government. It means you carry on testing and you don't find it. Yeah. So do you see what I did there? I sneakily got some of my rants in at the same time as giving out information. Why can't they do that on the news? The 9 o'clock news would be much more fun if they did it in that style, with a bit of ranting from the news. I was going to say newsagent, newscaster, newsreader. Did you know that newsreaders don't wear trousers? Because I know that from that film, The Anchorman, and we saw that clip.
They do wear trousers. It was just the one off that because of the lockdown. The guy just finished doing some exercise.
We saw the real clip, and then there's that movie, The Anchorman, where they've got a newsreader not wearing trousers. And look, just to prove to you that this is not a news bulletin. So there we are. I'm wearing trousers, so it can't be news. But it's not fake news either. It's real stuff, but it's some opinion piece. We haven't heard any wisdom, any of our usual nightly wisdom, and we're three-quarters of
There's
the way
plenty
through.
of rant, I suppose. No, we're cool.
I mean, rant, let's be honest, let's define this, is foolishness. It's some kind of theatrical foolishness, and Fiona brings wisdom to things. Hello, Gaia, and hello, Edward. Nice of you to join us again. Yeah, Australia's death toll still under 100. I think I said it earlier, but I need to say it again. And there are a lot of books of wisdom. You pick one up and you put it down again.
Yes.
Let's have it. Bring it on.
Not just the one. I'm talking about exercise and exercise in colour.
Okay.
What day is it? It's today. It's squeaked, Piglet. My favourite date, said Pooh. An exercise in colour. Choose a colour and decide to notice that colour as you go about your day. Every time you notice the colour, stop and acknowledge it. This will slow your thought and place you in the present moment.
Blue.
Think of a colour, and go on your day looking for the colour blue.
Blue.
It would slow you
Hence
down.
we're all dressed in black here, but there we go. That slows me down.
You see?
That
It does
slows me
work.
down.
It does work.
I'm for once almost speechless. Sharon, hello. Thank you so much for joining us. I think you pointed us in the way of a video, which we won't be able to check at the moment because we're doing another one. But straight as soon as we come off, we're going to have a look at that. It's very nice to have your company tonight. And
We're going to read something about your uncle because today he's the anniversary of his birth.
So my uncle was a monk. He emigrated to the United States before I was born, about a year or 2 years max before I was born, and he spent the whole of his life, which was more than 60 years, living in a monastery in a place called Spencer in Massachusetts, and he had a story that he used to tell me every time we used to speak. Oh, Sharon's just done a live. That's fantastic. Thank you, Sharon. We will have a look at that as soon as we go off. And Sharon has put the link in the comments. So if you want to have a look at Sharon's live, not now, you've got to wait a quarter of an hour. But I strongly recommend that straight after this, you go and look at Sharon's live. Well done, you. Excellent stuff, isn't it?
He does fabulous poems, I think, yeah.
That's terrific. I'm delighted, and thank you for sharing that information here. So this is my uncle's favourite story. But it's quite a precious and quite a valuable story, and it's a very meaningful one to me. And it's a great life lesson. So bear with us as we go through The Precious Present, a book written by a fellow called Spencer Johnson. And we're going to read a paragraph each. I'll do one, and Irma will do one, and I'll do one, and Irma will do one, if that's okay with you. Who wants to start?
You.
Okay. Once there was a boy who listened to an old man, and thus he began to learn about the precious present. It is a present because it is a gift, the happy man explained, and it's precious because anyone who receives such a present is happy forever.
Wow, the little boy exclaimed. I hope someone gives me the precious present. Maybe I'll get it for Christmas. The boy ran off to play, and the old man smiled. He liked to watch the little boy play. He saw the smile on the youngster's face and heard him laughing as he swung from a nearby tree. The boy was happy, and it was a joy to see.
The old man also liked to watch the boy work. He even rose early on Saturday mornings to watch the little labourer mow the lawn across the street. The boy actually whistled while he worked. The little child was happy, no matter what he was doing. It was indeed a joy to behold.
When he thought about what the old man had said, the boy thought he understood. He knew about presents, like the bicycle he got for his birthday and the gifts he found under the tree on Christmas morning. But as the boy thought more about it, he knew the joy of toys never lasts forever.
The boy began to feel uneasy. What then, he wondered, is this precious present? What could possibly make me happy forever? He found it difficult to even imagine the answer, and so he returned to ask the old man.
Is Is the present a magical ring? One that I might put on my finger and make all my wishes come true?
Good evening to Adam, who's just joined us. We're just reading my uncle's favourite story. He was a monk. He was a monk for 60 years, and tonight is the 50th anniversary. It's their 5th anniversary of his death, so bear with us. This is the story of the precious present. Is the precious present a magical ring? No, replied the old man. The precious present has nothing to do with wishing.
As the boy grew older, he continued to wonder. He went to the old man. Is the precious present a flying carpet? He inquired. One that I could get on and go any place that I like?
No, the man quietly replied. When you have the precious present, you will be perfectly content to be where you are.
The boy was becoming a young man now, and felt a bit foolish for asking, but he was uncomfortable. He began to see that he was not achieving what he wanted. Is the precious present, he slowly ventured, a sunken treasure? Perhaps rare gold coins buried by pirates long ago?
No, young man, the old man told him, it is not. The riches is rare, indeed, but the wealth of the present comes only from itself.
The young man thought for a moment. Then he became annoyed. You told me, the young man said, that anyone who receives such a present will be happy forever. I never got such a gift as a child.
I'm afraid you don't understand, the old man responded. You already know what the precious present is. You already know where to find it, and you already know how it can make you happy. You knew it best when you were a small child. You have simply forgotten.
The young man went away to think, but as time passed, he became frustrated and finally angry. He eventually confronted the old man. If you want me to be happy, the young man shouted, why don't you just tell me what the precious present is?
And where to find it? The old man retorted.
Yes, exactly, the young man demanded.
I would like to, the old man began, but I do not have such power. No one does. Only you have the power to make yourself happy. Only you. The precious present isn't something that someone gives you. It's a gift that you give yourself.
The young man was confused, but determined. He resolved to find the precious present himself. And so he packed his bags. He left where he was and went elsewhere to look for the precious present.
Hello, Dave, the other Dave Clouter. We're just reading a story that was told to me by my uncle. It's the 5th anniversary tonight of his death. This is a great story with a good message for us all. After many frustrating years, the man grew tired of looking for the precious present. He had read all the latest books, and he had looked in the Wall Street Journal. He had looked in the mirror and into the faces of other people. He had wanted so much to find this precious present. He had gone to extraordinary lengths. He had looked for it at the top of mountains and in cold, dark caves. He had searched for it in dense, humid jungles and underneath the seas, but it was all to no avail. His stressful search had exhausted him. He even became ill occasionally, but he didn't know why.
The man returned wearily to the old man's side. The old man was happy to see him. They often laughed out loud together. The young man liked to be with the old man. He felt happy in his presence. He guessed that this was because the old man felt happy with himself. It wasn't that the old man's life was so trouble-free. He didn't appear to have a lot of money. He seemed to be alone most of the time. In fact, there was no apparent reason why he was so much happier and healthier than most people were. But happy he was. And so were those who spent time with him. Why does it feel so good to be with him? The young man wondered. Why? He left wondering.
Good evening, Kieran. Thank you for joining us. And we're just reading my uncle's favourite ever story. He sadly died 5 years ago tonight, and we're doing this as a tribute to him. After many years, the once young man returned to inquire further. He was now very unhappy and often ill. He needed to talk to the old man, but the old man had grown very, very old, and all too soon he spoke no more. The wise voice could no longer be heard.
The man was alone. At first, he was saddened by the loss of his old friend, and then he became frightened, very frightened. He was afraid that he would never learn how to be happy. until finally he accepted what had always been true. He was the only one who could find his own happiness. The unhappy man recalled what the happy old man had told him so many years ago. But as hard as he tried, he could not figure it out. He tried to understand what he had heard.
The present has nothing to do with wishing. When you have the present, you will be perfectly content to be where you are. The richness of the present comes from its own source. The present is not something that someone gives you, it's something that you give to yourself.
The unhappy man was now tired of looking for the precious present. He had grown so tired of trying that he simply stopped trying, and then it happened. He didn't know why it happened. When it happened, it just happened. He realized that the precious present was just that, the present. Not the past and not the future, but the precious present.
And that was the story that on the rare occasions when I had the chance to talk to my uncle, who was a monk from 1958 until 2015, when sadly he left us. Every time we spoke, he would tell me that story, and he would emphasize how important that is, that very valuable lesson for all our lives.
That's right. Sometimes the present is a bit troublesome in terms of reality, but if you really take it as a present, as a gift, to push yourself forward, to develop yourself, I don't know, with all your grit and all your might to move on, it's just wonderful.
See,
That's wonderful. Thank you, David, for sharing.
we can't change our past. We can't. It's there. It's happened. It no longer exists. It's just a memory. It's just a record in a dusty old diary or something like this. It's a lesson to us, perhaps, moving forwards, but it's something that we cannot alter. As for our future,
It hasn't happened yet.
it hasn't. We've got carte blanche. We can make our future anything we want it to be. We have a world of possibilities awaiting us. Every day is a fresh start. Every day is a new challenge. If you have a partner, a wife or partner, if you have a quarrel with them, make it up before bedtime, because tomorrow is going to be a fresh start, a reset. Don't hold grudges and go to bed grumpy and this kind of thing. Realise that you have a sort of wonderful shared future together, and that everything is up there. Everything is up. I don't like the expression "up for grabs," but everything is there for the taking, and the only reality we have is the now. It's the present. It's what's going on around us today, and we can't make excuses from the past. We can't really make predictions for the future. We have to live now, and only now. And as Sharon says, massive action can only happen in the present. And Kevin says, thank you for sharing that story. Hello, Colin. Thank you for joining us. We were just reminiscing about my uncle, who went off 2 years before I was born, and I'm an elderly fella. 2 years before I was born, he went off to join a monastery, and he stayed there for the rest of his life. And a friend of mine, Jan, posted a picture on Facebook tonight, reminding me that it's 5 years since I lost my uncle. And he reached a very good old age. Now, Kevin says, have I got time? I mean, look, is the Pope a Catholic or is the sky blue? While we're talking about monks and things, of course we do. Of course we do. And there's some particularly good questions tonight. But thank you for popping in the reminder, because Kevin knows that
Did
I am.
Did I hear a big yawn there, Kevin?
I am a forgetful old fella, and I do tend to stray from time to time from the path, but then Irma and yourself and other good people in my life always steer me back again. But before that, I mentioned to Kevin this evening that we're about to go live, and he goes, "I've just got time to feed the foxes." Isn't that nice? That is so nice. That's such a lovely feeling. There are only two people whose photos on Facebook I regularly seek out. And one of them is a fellow called Crusher, who Kevin will all know as well. And Crusher posts sunsets, and Kevin posts the most beautiful pictures of these foxes who live in his garden. And it's a wonderful, precious gift. We've only seen one fox here, and the whole time we've been here, sort of running across the car park that's opposite where we live. And when I used to live in the countryside, we used to see foxes too, but not so much in the sort of urban setting, because the urban setting is a bit sort of
Okay,
rough
let's move
for
on to the
them,
questions.
if you like. Let's move to the questions, and we start with Peter from County Durham, who says,
The R rate in the North East and Yorkshire is now the highest in England. Does the government acknowledge that a phased, geographically based lifting of the lockdown would have been a better option?
no, I don't think they do. This lockdown is costing them a lot of money in furloughing people and in handing out grants and so forth. And I think that they are aware of the fact that the GDP, our gross domestic product, is likely to fall by 14% this year, and so it's imperative for them to get the country moving again. Whether or not this is the right decision, and whether or not this might lead to more problems in the future, I think only time will tell. Oh, and Adam likes our story about the precious present. I'm very glad that you do, and thank you for being with us tonight, Adam. And also thank you, Anushka, for joining us on this Sunday evening for our Sunday evening kind of late get together. It's all right to do it a bit later, isn't it? Because then you've watched Coronation Street or whatever's on a Sunday evening. I don't know, because I never watch telly, but you got that out of the way, and just when we're getting ready for bedtime and stuff, we can come along with a few thoughts and cheer you up and everything. But when lockdown's over and we invite people around for tea, and everybody's welcome, and Adam and family are welcome as well to join us one day when it's safe to do so. That'd be lovely, because we haven't met up for absolutely ages. But when we do, it won't be at 10 p.m. It'll be at lunchtime or tea time or something like that. But anyway, just to clarify that. But we're going to have an open house when it's possible for us to be out and about again. Question 2.
Why are visitors from France to the UK to be exempt from the proposed quarantine rules? Ooh.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
No.
But
Interesting one.
vive la différence. But that is a quite extraordinary thing, really, because France were one of the people, weren't they, during Brexit, who were making things quite difficult and being quite cantankerous with us. But vive la France, nonetheless. And French is the only foreign language that I speak reasonably fluently, and I have spent many happy days there. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Obviously, Charles de Gaulle is no longer around, and he was a kind of thorn in the side of English-French relations, because not many people know this, but that's a Michael Caine saying, isn't it? Not many people know this, but shortly after the Second World War, there was a proposal that, and this is true, because it's documented and so forth, there was a proposal, I didn't just dream it last night, there's a proposal that England and France would link up under the Queen to become a single country in the interests of sort of European harmony and moving everything forward. And this was in the sort of either late 1940s or early 1950s. And so there's always been a sort of affinity between us, apart from when that fella Napoleon Bonaparte was rampaging around the place. Had to throw that one in. But it was Charles de Gaulle who vetoed it. And so it was that the EU came about. And if otherwise, it might have been a sort of Britain and France led EU with Germany and others tagging along behind. But history is what it is, and this is the way that everything panned out. And there are documents on record that sort of report all that. So it's some interesting stuff. It's very interesting stuff. We here we are on this Sunday evening in our living rooms with all these bits of good news and other stuff. Was there anything I missed? Because I got so moved by my uncle's story that I sort of threw the old laptop onto the floor. I hope I didn't break it.
No, it didn't break down. That's fine. That's okay. Still works.
That's terrific. We'll just pick up. I'm in trouble if it's broken, because this was this was Irma's birthday present. Not only that, but I nick it quite often for things like this. Only for things like this, where I can sort of show it up to the screen and impress with the thinness of my laptop there. But at other times I use a big old chunky one, because which I overwhelm with lots of open tabs and software and bits and bobs. But a bit heavy on the old knee here. Plus the battery's a bit buggered, so it only lasts about half an hour, and then it would die very suddenly and with great bravado. So I think we did with most of the stories, but we haven't looked at the Sun yet, which is probably a good thing. Oh, and look, I went to look on the Sun website, and it said no can do. So sorry, that'll have to wait. Mr. Murdoch and his highly intellectual discourses will have to wait for another day, I guess, and that's okay. So some good news on the human immune response to the coronavirus. Now, in view of those cytokine, is it called, storms that they have, where the body starts to eat itself when it's coronavirus and your lungs explode, anything about the immune system and COVID-19 has got to be welcome, positive, and uplifting news. As I say, we never. A goodbye to Sharon, and thank you so much for your coming this evening. We never pre-rehearse these little. We don't, do we?
No, we don't.
What tends to happen is, as happens this evening, Irma goes, "Well, we're not going to do it tonight, are we? It's late." And I go, "Oh, come on, please." And she goes, "All right, make us a coffee." And that's the sort of negotiating that goes on night after night, which is all right. And you know, now the browser has crashed altogether, so that's got to be a sign, hasn't it, from on high?
Yes.
When it and look, to prove that is the case, look, there's the screen. Oh, those nice people on there. I don't know. But anyway, lovely. Oh, those are happy days. That was one of our first meetings, which is on my desktop now, to commemorate said event. I'll try and start this quickly. It's probably not going to happen. It's probably the end. But you know the old saying, "Hope springs eternal." Why don't you, while I'm trying to do this, tell us a quick wisdom thing, or a slow wisdom thing, and then we'll see whether we've got anything to add before we take the long and winding road.
It's just to follow through with what you said about the present. Is don't let the past define you. Don't let the future to destroy you. Make the present your gift, and that's the best you can do. Make the present your gift and take it, just for you.
Okay, now I'm glad that I did get to start the computer again. Here it is. Ta-da! Complete with adverts for something. But anyway, an advert about robotics. But anyway, you know, whatever. It's funny because sometimes the adverts are really sharp and targeted to your interest and everything. But then when they tell me about robotics, I think, We were discussing robot doctors the other day.
Yes, we did.
That was your crap phone eavesdropping on us, your crapple. It was obviously eavesdropping, and it turned it into an advert on this Lenovo, that splendid brand. Other brands are available, but even other thin, elegant brands are available, but the other ones that run other operating systems, including Windows, but also other operating systems are available, but the ones that don't run iOS 10 or whatever work pretty damn well. And Linux being another one, and others. Immunity, and the idea that people do or don't get immunity once they've had COVID-19, whether they will or won't catch it again. And there are all sorts of different bits of information here about, for example, T cells, which are the immune things, which come from the thymus and help to recognise, and remember, I'm not a doctor here, Dr. Mike is the doctor, and he always puts me right when we have our little chats, but they're the ones that recognise the invaders. And there are T helper cells, and it's a long, oh my god, this is a long article, and they compared infected patients with those who hadn't been infected, and they looked at all the different sort of proteins in them, and this kind of thing. And interestingly, 40 to 60% of the patients who hadn't been exposed to coronavirus had cells that were already in some way able to respond. So basically, the bottom line of this extremely long article with a lot of words in it, I had to skim read in about 10 seconds there, appears to be that there is good hope for a vaccine. But obviously, this is dependent on its ability to mutate and disguise itself. And what's that?
Go on.
No, come on. You had a really good one. It said, learn something.
Simplest things in life.
What about them? Learn the simplest things in life.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good saying. Was that all of it or just a bit of it?
All of it.
Oh, okay. Is that a point at which we should close our laptops and notebooks and bid you guys a fond farewell until we meet again some sunny day, which will be tomorrow, hopefully? So Kevin tells me that, which I didn't know that, the original policy attracted a warning from the UK not to single out one nation that would be would have preferential status and would be unworkable. So the government had to backtrack and say there wouldn't be a French quarantine exemption. And I don't think there should be a quarantine exemption for any nation, apart possibly from Australia, which, as my good friend Fiona pointed out, has contained this thing very well indeed. And with that, can we have one more thought? Because I love these thoughts. It's like,
Yes. Right. The harder you fall, the higher you bounce.
Yeah.
Unknown.
That's very true, and that applies to life. If we position ourselves at the top of the old pyramid, like if we're president or prime minister or that kind of thing, then obviously everybody's out for blood, and they all want to sit in the seat that we're sitting in, and then we find ourselves back on the ranch after a few years or months.
Mm-hmm.
So
all I can add is that I am particularly very grateful for allowing us to share our life during lockdown with you. It's just very uplifting to know that we are connecting somehow with old friends that we haven't met, and we hope to one day share a coffee or two, or perhaps a pint or a glass of wine, one day at one point. So I'm very grateful for that, and thank you for the opportunity also, David. Without you, I would not ever do a live.
You're very sweet, and it's not as painful as the dentist, is it?
No, yeah.
And with that, we take our leave of you. Thank you so much, as Ian was saying, for your company tonight. We hope you'll be able to join us again soon. We'll be here tomorrow, but if not tomorrow, join us the next day or the next day or the next day. But until then, above all, have a good life and do stay safe.
Bye now.